Chapter 9. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwelt in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. You have multiplied the nation, you have increased their joy. They joy before you, according to the joy in harvest, as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For the yoke of his burden, and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken in the day of Midian. For every boot stamped with fierceness, and every cloak rolled in blood, shall even be for burning for fuel of fire. For a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, and the government is upon his shoulder. And his name is called Peleoez El-Gebor Abi Ad Sar Shalom, that the government may be increased, of peace there be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to establish it, and uphold it through justice and through righteousness from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts doth perform this. The Lord sent a word into Jacob, and it hath lighted upon Israel. All the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria, that say in the pride and in arrogancy of heart, the bricks are fallen, but we will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but cedars will we put in their place. Therefore the Lord doth set upon high the adversaries of Rezin against him, and spur his enemies, the Arameans on the east, and the Philistines on the west, and they devour Israel with the open mouth. For all his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Yet the people turn not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. Therefore the Lord doth cut off from Israel head and tail, palm branch and rush in one day. The elder and the man of rank, he is the head. The prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail. For they that lead this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed. Therefore the Lord shall have no joy in their young men, neither shall he have compassion on their fatherless and widows. For every one is ungodly and an evildoer, and every mouth speaketh wantonness. For all his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For wickedness burneth as the fire, it devoureth the briars and thorns. Yes, it kindleth in the thickets of the forest, and they roll upwards in thick clouds of smoke. Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is this land burned up. The people also are as the fuel of fire. No man spares his brother. And one snatcheth on the right hand and is hungry, and he eateth on the left hand and is not satisfied. They eat every man the flesh of his own arm. Manasseh, Ephraim, Manasseh, they together are against Judah. For all his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. All right, let's go back to verse 1. Now, in the last chapter, and yesterday, God said that he would become for a sanctuary now. But as well as this sanctuary, he is going to be for a stone of stumbling, and a snare, and a trap. And many shall be snared and taken. And we're going to find out now, in the end of days, that this is what's happening. See, everybody thinks that everything is hunky-dory, but it's not. It's not. The world's full of darkness, and we're going to understand this. Because in the end, this great marvelous work of God, it will be made known. And one thing is, we need to make sure, and we have no way of knowing, because we wasn't actually there when they recovered the manuscripts in the order they were in. But one thing we try to do as we go through is read these in an understanding according to the time period they was taken in. And because it's very, very important now when these scriptures were written, because they would be talking more about that time. And we would know that at the period of Hezekiah, which would be at near the end of the prophecies of Isaiah or Isaiah, the Hezekiah had turned, and Hezekiah had destroyed all the high places, and Isaiah would be a very old man by that time, having lived through several kings. And Uzziah's kingdom even lasted 52 years. So we're going to go ahead and pick this up, and keep it in mind, we should always go back and read Kings as we read this, and try to relate these some into the the time period that they belong. Verse 1. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwelt in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. So now we're talking the people that walked in darkness, and these are the ones who never had no understanding, and these are the ones that dwelt in the land of the shadow of death, or these are the ones that have turned from God. They are in darkness. They don't have no understanding. Something is blocking the light from coming in. 2. And upon them hath the light shined. So now has understanding come, and we're going to find out this is a similitude now of a light shining, and it is either going to relate to one of two lights, and this would be the greater light or the lesser light. See, we understand this as the greater light, the greater understanding. 2, you have multiplied the nation. You have increased their joy, the joy before you, according to the joy in harvest, as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. And see, this was the purpose God from the beginning, was to add to the flock in the first place. See, God chose him a small group among the earth and the nations, and he was going to increase his flock from the beginning. Now we're going to find out, see, God's overall purpose is still to do this. And God shall cause the world the earth to increase with their joy. But we're going to figure out now at one time this in joy is he is giving this over into the hand of another and prospering them even in their joy. 3. For the yoke of his burden and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken, as in the day of Midian. And we're going to find out that these are the ones that have been under the oppressor and under the yoke of idolatry. God shall break them, even as in the day of Midian. This is in the day of strife, when he totally, utterly cut them off. 4. For every boot stamped with fierceness, and every cloak rolled in blood, shall even be for burning, for fuel of fire. And this boot is a shoe or a boot worn by a soldier. Now, and what it represents is a covering that's been placed on a man's foot, a path. And these would represent this thing that's made by man to comfort your path as you go. Even then, it's a similitude, the same we can use as sewing pillows to the arm of God, something to pad out your path. And this fierceness and this cloak that's rolled in blood, this cloak is a garment, this outer garment that's been rolled in blood or made red through bloodshed. It's a garment they wear that they have made red through bloodshed. We're going to find that out. And these are going to be for a fuel for fire, and that's exactly what they are used for even today. 5. For a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, and the government is upon his shoulder, and his name is called Pele Yoas El Gibor Abiad Sar Shalom, or we can say this marvelous counselor, the mighty one's strength, my Father's everlasting Prince of Peace. See, and in the King James Version, they translate this pretty close, but they do get it out of order a little bit. And this order does matter, because it's not the mighty God, it's the mighty one's strength, and that makes a difference there a little bit, because the order of the word does make a difference. And this Abi-Ad, see, the everlasting Father is different from the Father's everlasting. See, because one is like something the Father has given. The other relates to the Father, the Prince of Peace. And this Prince is the title that's given to the King's Son. 6. That the government may be increased, and of peace there be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to establish it, to uphold it through justice and through righteousness from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of the host doth perform this. And we're going to see once again, as it was in verse 5, it's the government, it's that rule be over them. For what? For judgment. See? And the kingdom is established for judgment and justice through righteousness from henceforth forever. And we're going to find out that's exactly what it was for judgment. For see, the king has been for judgment from the beginning. There's nothing changed about this. And this is never going to change. It's a judgment now. It's not a reward. See, because we're going to find out, see. They wasn't doing nothing good to get a reward. But evil was in the land. And God sent a judgment. 7. The Lord sent a word unto Jacob, and it hath lighted upon Israel. So, and we're going to find out, see, and Jacob contended with the mighty one there at Bethel. And it now, and we're going to find out that he prevailed. He come out limping, but he prevailed. And it's lighted upon Israel. Now it's fell upon Israel, this one who contends with the mighty one. And this Israel, or these 10 nations, has been scattered out in all the earth. Now, you can say this, or you can say that. They have no understanding of their heritage. They don't know where their great-grandfather was from, let alone his great-grandfather. They don't consider these things. They don't consider how far God has removed. Because he said he was going to remove you. Now, in the beginning, 8, and all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria, that say in the pride and arrogancy of their heart, God's letting everybody know. He's going to show the world, even all the double-fruited, this inhabitant of the place of dregs, those that say in their heart, the bricks are fallen, but we will build with hewn stone. The sycamores are cut down, but cedars will we put in their place. And that's what they say in their heart. Oh, these bricks are falling down, but we're going to build with a hewn stone. These that are made by man. These sycamores are cut down, these trees that were made and set in slips. But cedars now, cedars, these evergreens even, this everlasting, will be put in their place. 10. Therefore the Lord doth set upon high the adversaries of Rezin against him, and spur his enemies. And this is what God does. And this enemy we're talking about here, this adversary, this one that's not for but against, is the favored. And he spurs his enemies, what? Helps them along. The Arameans, 11, on the east, and the Philistines on the west, and they devour Israel with the open mouth. For all his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. And we're going to find out that's still what we got going on in the earth today. They can say whatever they want. They're waiting on Rabshakeh to come back and carry him off to a land that's much like theirs. See? But God's got another plan. God's got another plan. God said he ain't coming here. And we're going to find out now. That's exactly what's going to happen. God said so. But these Arameans are these enlightened ones that come from the east. They come out of this land over here, where the sun does come up and enlightenment comes from. That's who's against you. And the Philistines, those drifters, those wanderers from God, they wandered from God and left God's word even. Those are those that devour Israel. And Israel is devoured with an open mouth, having no understanding. We found out in the last chapter that the netherworld has widened its borders and opened its mouth wide now to accept everybody. I don't see this as a good thing. But now we got to remember this has all been increased now by the hand of God. 12. Yet the people turn not unto him that smites them, neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. And we're going to find out. Remember, the nations didn't listen. The nations didn't. God even showed them, and they still did have no understanding. They still didn't listen to God, but turned back to the wickedness, every man into his way, teaching for gold and silver and selling his brother, whatever, as we're getting ready to find out. They still won't turn back to God. God's the one that's smiting you. God's the one bringing affliction into the earth. God's the one causing it because you've turned from the law of God, and it's evident in society. You can't hide it. Your mouth can't speak nothing against it to do anything. Why? Well, you won't make yourself obedient to the law. 12. Yet the people turn not unto him that smites them, neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. And we know that's exactly what's going on. You won't seek unto God, who does smite you, through this great example, even the one he said he was going to do. See, he has set judgment right there in front of you, and you still don't understand. Therefore the Lord doth cut off from Israel head and tail, palm branch and rush in one day. Well, this head and tail, this is the head, that which rules, and the tail, that which drags around behind it. And this palm branch and the rush, it's the same thing. It's the branch that comes out and the rush which brings it forth in one day. 14. For the elder and the man of rank, he is the head, and the prophet that teaches lies, he is the tail. And we're going to find out this is the example God's making. Even in one day, the same example. He's done made it once, and he used it to teach with. Now he's going to make it again, and he's going to use it to teach with. This elder and the man of rank, well, this elder and the man of rank are supposed to be those that are wise, those that have lived the years, that are supposed to be teaching truth, justice, and righteousness in the land, but instead they don't have no understanding themselves. And all they do is stand up and run their mouths. This man of rank is this man who's been set there to have an order about him. He has no order about him. Why? Well, all they do is live in a fairy tale world, and all the while the world and the earth's in suffering. They do what they're told. Who's telling them what to do? Well, this one who supposedly ruling over everything. He supposedly has charge of all this, and he's ruling it. But what we find is that the people are allowed to sin. See, the people are allowed to sin. And this is the prophet that teaches these lies, this one who twists it around. He makes the bad good and the good bad. Well, he says, well, you ain't got to worry about that. Just say a couple words and it all goes away. No, it's not the way it works. It never did work that way. Never will work that way. See, he ain't forgiven of his sins. How can he know the way to forgiveness? Ain't none turned from their sin. None turned to the law of God. If you did, well, we'd know in society, see, because sin would be driven out. God would go before you just like he promised. 15. For they that lead this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed. Because that's what God's done, see. God has delivered you. He's made a trap. He's made a snare. Didn't say many were going to be delivered. Many are going to trip and fall and be taken, see. What? Because you got out there messing around with men instead of staying in the law of God. If you would have stayed in the law of God, you would have knew these guys right off the bat. 16. Their way is destruction. Therefore the Lord shall have no joy in their young men, neither shall he have compassion on their fatherless and widows. For every one is ungodly and an evildoer, and every mouth speaketh wantonness. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. And this is the wrath of God coming down. We got all these ones, all these high places everywhere. Every place to lead you astray. Everything you can think of. Every abomination known to God's on the earth. And is his anger turned away? No. It's stretched out still. God's compassion is being taken away from who? The fatherless. These that don't even have no understanding, that never had a father to teach them, and widows. These that are husbands been taken away. Where have all the men gone? Why are there fatherless and widows in the land? For they are ungodly and evildoers. And the men are taken away, and there's no one to stand up and fight. No one to say, come, obey the law of God and teach his children the law and set the law as rule in his house. 17, for wickedness burns as the fire. It devours the briars and thorns. Yes, it kindleth in the thickets of the forest, and they roll upward in the thick clouds of smoke. And this is what's going on. It's the fire of God, see. And it's devouring now even your children. For they go astray into this world without understanding of the law. And the wickedness, it burns. And the briars and the thorns are burned up. It starts there in the forest, this place of the mighty men. That's what the forest represents, these trees, all these that stand up there. There's supposed to be some kind of great protection now. What are they doing? See, these are the thick clouds of smoke that's going up, or they are the fire. Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is this land burned up, and the people also are as a fuel of fire, and no man spares his brother. They're buying them and selling them for money, selling them off to the fire, burning them like fuel. Men, they have no understanding. If they knew what they was doing, they would stop, get on their knees, and beg God for forgiveness. Nobody ordained you to be a priest. Nobody's ordained you to preach the Word of God. You wasn't commissioned. Your commission is of a man. 19, and one snatcheth on the right hand and is hungry, and he eateth on the left hand and is not satisfied. They eat every man the flesh of his own arm. He stealeth that with his right hand, that's his work hand. He snatcheth it, takes it away, gives it over, and eateth with his left hand, is not satisfied. That's what he's doing in rest. His left hand, see, that's his hand of his shield. That's what he's eating from. This has become his covenant he's made. This has become his protection he's made. This theft of his hands. He's not satisfied, and they eat every man the flesh of his own arm. This is his own understandings, what this represents. He eats the flesh of his own arm, his own work. See, this he works up his own idol. He makes it with his fingers. See, and he eats the flesh thereof. This is what this represents. 20, Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh. They together are against Judah, for all his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. And we're going to find out that's exactly the truth. God's hand is still stretched out. All this evil in the world, God making great examples, and still they won't turn to the Lord your God who smites you, who is causing this. You have no understanding. You still go in error, living in the shadows. Manasseh and Ephraim causing to forget the double-fruited, and the double-fruited causing to forget. And they together are against the house of praisings, this place of praisings that go forth. And all his anger is not turned away, but his hand stretched out still. Because that's what they do. They cause to forget. Forget what? Forget how God delivered you with a mighty hand, how he give you the law to go by, and you still refuse. See, God scattered you out. God's done this. He said he was going to. But we know the end of things. See, God had a plan from the beginning. He said, you will turn. You will turn. So turn and return to the law of God. Let God bless you. Let God give you understanding that you may see all this in the earth and know that God is alive. All right, let's go to chapter 10.